My father recently passed away in a car accident a few months ago, and at this time I was walking with Jesus. So I wanted to just give a testimony of how Jesus does work in our lives and how he does speak to us today. So, me and my dad, growing up, we didn't really have that good of a relationship. My parents were divorced, and I didn't really talk to my dad very much. My father was involved in hard drugs. I don't know the exact drugs, but I know he was involved in hard drugs. He didn't drink a lot, but he battled with drugs, drug addiction his whole entire life, and that's one of the main reasons that him and my mother got divorced, and also porn and just adultery and lust and things like that. So I never really was close to my dad. Really, my entire life, I was not close to my dad. When I got older and I first started seeking after God, that's when I actually did develop a relationship with my dad, because my dad is what I would call a Bible believing Christian. I do think that he heard from God during some points of his life. I know that he did battle a lot, so with sin, and I know that he backslid a lot. So I cannot say his relationship with Jesus. I can just testify on the fruit that I saw from him. So I really don't know. I don't know his relationship with Jesus, and I'll never claim to know it. That's between him and Jesus. I just know that for the majority of his life, he did live in sin, and he did battle sin. But during the time, the months leading up to his death, I was not in contact with him, so I cannot speak on the fruit that he was bearing, or how his relationship was with Jesus at that time, because I did not know him at that time. I wasn't in fellowship with him. So the division between my father really came when Jesus started to call me out of church. My dad had lived with me for a while. He came to live with me for a while. But my dad really enjoyed going to church. And even when we were in the church, there were some sins that he was doing inside of the church. And that was really some things that Jesus was showing me, was that there's a lot of sin inside of today's organized church systems. And it's clearly stated in the Bible that if we continue to sin after coming to the truth of Jesus, that we don't know Jesus, that Jesus will renew us. We will be renewed, and he will give us power over sin to stop sinning. That's one of the problems that Jesus showed me in the organized church system, is that there's a lot of sin, there's a lot of worldliness in the church, and we're called to be separate from that. We're called to be holy and to separate ourselves from the world, which is unclean. So that's kind of where me and my father had a falling out. Was really about the church system. Was because he believed that Jesus was in the organized church system, and I did not believe that. I believe that Jesus is calling his children out of the organized church system, because there's a lot of evil and there's a lot of wicked in the American organized church system, and pretty much there's a lot of evil in the church system in general, that it's not of God, and we are called to be separate from that. So, anyways, my father moved out of my apartment and he went back home, back to our home state. But anyways, so a few months later, I became backslidden, and I actually stopped following Jesus. He stopped pursuing God as well. He became backslidden. And during this time, it was a couple of years that passed. If you've watched my other testimony, you can know that I fell away from Jesus for a couple of years. But anyways, I didn't, I never forgave my father really for anything. I just didn't really want anything to do with him. I didn't want anything to do with Jesus. I didn't want anything to do with anybody I had ever talked to about Jesus. I just didn't want to deal with it at all. So about 1 to 2 weeks before my father passed away, I was in the shower, and I was just praying to Jesus. I was just talking to him, and Jesus really put my father on my mind and on my heart. And I felt that I should call and talk to him, and just talk to him and tell him that I was following Jesus again, and see, how he was doing, and just to see if Jesus had talked to him at all, or if Jesus had showed him anything about the church system, or just to talk to him and talk to him about Jesus, and just, call him and just tell him that I love him, to really just talk to him. And I didn't, because I just was scared. I was fearful that we would get into a disagreement again, like we did the first time that we had talked about it. Because the disagreement that we had was a pretty sharp disagreement, and I just, in general, don't like to have confrontations with people like that. So I just was really scared, and I just kept saying, well, okay, Jesus, I'm just going to keep praying about it, and if you'll give me some more signs. So a few weeks passed, and I just kind of forgot about it, and I wasn't really praying about it very much. And then my husband, Anthony, he actually ran into somebody that he had known when we were in the world. He had ran into this person at the store. My husband had been in his work clothes. He worked an outside job at that time, and if you've seen my testimony or anything, me and my husband were very vain. We always wanted the best of everything. We always wanted to be on top. We were very competitive. So appearance and things like that really were everything to us, and that meant a lot to us. So when my husband ran into this person and they saw him in his work clothes, which he had been working outside, my husband just felt really ashamed. He felt really embarrassed, because this person, of course, was saying, oh, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. How are you doing? And my husband just didn't say anything about Jesus. He just told him, he was doing good, and he just felt a little bit embarrassed about his job, and that he wasn't, out in the world doing all this stuff and all successful. So Jesus rebuked him. Jesus led him to make a testimony video and to put it on his Facebook page, because up to this point, we had not put anything on our Facebook page. So Jesus led him to just put it on his Facebook page, and to really just start sharing with our friends and family the truth of Jesus, and what Jesus is doing in our life, and the things that he's teaching us. A couple days later, I woke up to a phone call from my older sister. As soon as I woke up, she called me, and she told me that my father had passed away. And what's really interesting is that I actually had a dream that night. When my sister called me, I was literally laying in my bed. I had just woken up, and I was laying in bed next to my husband. We had just woken up, and I was telling him I had this really weird dream about my dad last night. And I was just explaining to him what happened in the dream. And I didn't even get finished explaining to him the dream when my sister was calling. My sister was calling me to tell me that my father had passed away. In my dream, I dreamed that I was talking to my father, and in the dream, he was crying. He was weeping in my dream. And I dreamed that he was acknowledging that the sins that he was in when we were in the church was wrong. He was acknowledging that the pornography was wrong, the lust was wrong. He was just acknowledging that he knew it was wrong. He knew all of those sins were wrong. And he was just weeping. He was so sad over his sin. He was just devastated. He was weeping in my dream. And then his hand was like this, and then he went to look at his hand like this, and then his hand just started to disintegrate. It just started to disappear, like into thin air. And then that's pretty much when I woke up. I got kind of frightened. Something frightened me in my dream, and something frightened me in my spirit. I don't know what it was, but I just woke up, and that was the end of my dream. And it's also interesting because my husband actually had a dream that night too about my father. He had a dream that we were inside of a Catholic church, and that the service was about to start, and that my dad had taken us to the church. And my dad's not even Catholic. He was just taking us to church because, he thought that he was doing the right thing. And as the priest was talking, we were telling him, hey, Dad, this is not right. What this man's saying is not right. That's not of God. And my dad was like, really? He was, asking us, like, wow, okay. And then the priest started talking some more, and then he said some other things that weren't right and are not the truth. And we told my dad, hey, this is not right. This man's not speaking the truth of Jesus. And my dad was like, okay. And he was kind of hearing us. And then in my husband's dream, we both stood up and we started rebuking the priest, and we started rebuking everybody in the church, and the people started jumping out of the windows. And then my dad, kind of the same thing that happened in my dream, my dad he just sat back and he couldn't talk, and then he just kind of faded away. So as my sister was calling me to tell me that my father had passed away, me and my husband were discussing these two dreams that we had, and we weren't even finished talking about it when she called me. So obviously, I was devastated, and I was just so sad that I never got to talk to my father, and I don't know what his condition was, or I don't know his relationship with Jesus. I don't know, because I didn't talk to him for the months leading up to his death. I didn't talk to him. So apparently some people that my dad was staying with that had been helping him out to get back on the right track on his life and to get off drugs, apparently those people, my sister had saw the video that my husband had put on Facebook, and my sister had sent it to my father. And the day that my father died, he was with the people that were taking care of him, and he told them, my daughter and her husband made this video, but I haven't watched it yet. And the people said, okay, well, let's watch it then. And my father was like, no, I don't really want to watch it. But then they were like, no, we're going to watch it. So my father and them sat around the table and watched the entire 15-minute video of everything that we were just testifying that Jesus has shown us. And that person that he was with told me that my dad was in agreement with everything that we had said in the video. And my father watched that video not even 24 hours before he died. He watched that video the day that he died. He died at night. And he watched that video that day. He didn't even have a night's sleep before he died. It was the exact same day that he watched that video that my husband had posted on Facebook. So I don't know where my father is, and I hope that he was with Jesus. He was walking firmly with Jesus at the time of his death. And I have prayed to Jesus about this, but Jesus has not given me any concrete answers. I have had some dreams about it, but ultimately I don't think that it's for me to know, and that's between him and Jesus. I just hope with all my heart that he is with Jesus, but ultimately I can never know, and I wasn't around him. I didn't talk to him at the time for me to make a judgment myself, for me to see the fruit that he was bearing or around him at that time. And although people can tell me that they know or that he was with God, there are a lot of people that profess God but do not really know him. So I just leave it in Jesus's hands, and it's not for me to know, and it has nothing to do with my salvation. I can just focus my eyes on Jesus now and follow him. Stay on the narrow way until the very end, and I will endure and overcome until the end, and that I will be with Jesus in the end. And I hope that likewise that my Father is as well. I just wanted to give this testimony that Jesus is alive and Jesus speaks to you. If I had heeded the message from Jesus in the shower that night to call my father and talk to him, maybe I would have been able to talk to him about Jesus, and I would have been able to have one last conversation with him before he died. Nonetheless, Jesus still made a way for my father to at least hear from me and my husband one last time before he died. I just wanted to give this testimony that it's important to listen to what Jesus tells you and to really ask for clarity on what he wants you to do. And I also just want to testify that Jesus is alive and he speaks to us. I also just want to give a testimony that you may be watching my videos, you may be watching videos of people talking about Jesus, and you don't know if tonight will be your last night. My father, when he watched our video, do you really think that he thought that he was going to get in a car accident and die that night? We don't know when our time's going to be. Don't be so foolish to think that you're going to know when you're going to die. You could die after watching this video tonight, just like my father did. My father died less than 12 hours after he watched the video that my husband had posted. So this is just a video also to encourage you that don't wait until it's too late. Don't be foolish. Don't say to yourself that you'll do it tomorrow. Don't say that to yourself if you're not in right standing with Jesus, because your time could be any time, and he could be reaching out to you now that he wants you to go and get right with him. So just go and get right with Jesus if you're not. If you have been and you're not right now, go back to him. Jesus is there. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't wait until you can't repent. Don't wait until you can't seek after Jesus. Don't wait until your life here is over, because once it's over, and you can't come back. So I love you guys, and I just encourage you to keep seeking after Jesus and to just go after Jesus and to listen to his voice. I hope this testimony encourages you to hear his voice and to listen to what he tells you to do. I just hope that this video encourages somebody that Jesus is alive and he speaks, and that we need to listen and obey him. Jesus bless you.